Thank you for joining us today for Senate Education Committee meeting. We are going to start off with some presentations about Math Nation. The first person I will call on is Ethan Fieldman, CEO of Math Nation. Ethan, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Is your mic on?
Is it working now? A little better? Thank you so much. And we can put the computer up there when we get a chance as well. I'd first just like to thank John Federico and Stephen Durst from Federico Durst Consulting for working to get us on the agenda. Of course, most importantly, I want to thank the chair for allowing us the time to speak. Obviously, very important to talk about math these days with the pandemic and all of the struggles of students and parents and such at home. So very much appreciate the time. I'm just going to jump right in. So I'm Ethan Fieldman. I'm the CEO. We have Morgan Chittum is here, our vice president, and Dana is here. Dana actually runs the South Carolina Math Nation because there's actually 4 Math Nations right now that we'll talk about in a moment. So the challenge that we have, I don't like to start off a meeting with the not so good news, but as y'all are probably aware, definitely a challenge with COVID-19 with our students. The 6% decrease high schoolers at grade level in math, obviously an enormous problem. Only 47% of students, 53% of students are at grade level, 47% of students are below grade level in math across the state. And teacher vacancies are up 62% in 1 year. So many of you can relate to this. As a parent myself, we're never going to recover from the pandemic unless parents and families can be involved, right? And when you get to Algebra 1 especially, and you start talking about factoring a polynomial or graphing a quadratic, these are probably things that you've may have forgotten, right, and struggled to help.
Let's do that quiz right now.
We've got the people here to do it. So certainly big challenges. The good news is that there are programs out there such as Math Nation that have a proven track record over 10 years of helping on things like this. Certainly not a pandemic, but helping parents and students at home at night and on the weekends to do better. We have lots of data. I won't bore you with all the data right now, but we're happy to share it across 4 states, Mississippi, South Carolina, Florida, and Michigan. The 4 states we've been in for many years now. We've seen incredible gains, especially with rural students and all students really doing better on math. Now, we excite students in math. I know that many people think that math is boring or it's more boring than other subjects. I would disagree, but I know that many students and many parents feel that way. And the truth is, you don't have guest speakers in math typically, right? You don't have field trips. Where do you go to learn about graphing, right? And so, unfortunately, math just doesn't have some of that excitement and pizzazz, and so that's what we bring to the table, and it's reflected itself in higher test scores across the state. Just very briefly where we started. So we actually came out of the University of Florida College of Education. Morgan and I are actually based in Gainesville. I mentioned Dana runs the Math Nation in South Carolina. And in Florida 10 years ago, there was a new end-of-course exam in Algebra 1, and 52% of the students failed the test. It was a graduation requirement, it still is. That was a big problem. So we asked teachers what we could do to help them, especially interestingly, the teacher said, we're okay in the classroom, but when kids go home at night, the parents just can't help out, right? The students don't have anything when they go home. They come in the next day, they haven't done their homework, and they say, I got stuck, and there was nobody there to help them, right? And so they asked us to make engaging videos and workbooks and tutoring and all this great stuff. And within 1 year, with no state mandate in Florida, 100% of the school districts decided to use it. So there's never a mandate, but the districts love the program, so they use it. And the scores have gone up dramatically. And as I mentioned, we're now in 4 states. And we've been very focused in these 4 states across public schools and charter schools and others and homeschool parents. Everybody gets access. We've been doing this for a long time. When the pandemic hit, so many teachers told us, and they said, we don't know what we would have done without this program. And so we decided it was probably time for us to let others know about it. We have a great letter that you may have in front of you from the state superintendent of Mississippi. I won't read the whole letter to you, but I'll just point out that we've been there for many years. The scores have gone up dramatically in middle school and high school math in Mississippi. And I think most importantly, the state superintendent said that we've been very valuable to parents, and that especially in the rural communities throughout the state, they have very unique education staffing challenges, and so we've been very helpful for them. So what we do is we actually build something separately for each state. We're not a Common Core product or anything like that. We actually go to the state standards, the Kansas Mathematics Standards. We work with local universities and community colleges to build something fantastic for each state. It's actually different in each state. We use local examples because students don't know the distance between LA to New York, which is how I learned about ratios, doesn't make any sense to most students, right? But Wichita to Kansas City area, they would get that, right? And so we use real local examples in the state with local companies and workforce and state parks and things that students really understand. And then we work with local universities and community colleges to do the research and evaluation as well, to make sure that we're doing a great job for the students. We work with all the local community organizations, mentoring programs, Big Brothers Big Sisters, United Way, Boys and Girls Clubs, anything we can do to get the word out to give people access to math. And so I'll give you a quick example here of some of what we do. This is a very short video. It's about 1 minute long, showing you some of how we do this. And so we film these videos with local teachers. I'll show you an example here real quick. Let's see. I'll go to presenter view. Just a quick little sampler of what we do.
Welcome back. Anderson here, your study expert. We're going to wrap things up now. We're going to have that conversation again about equations, graphs, and tables, but now we're relating all three. Match the equations, tables, and graphs, noting any key features you use to determine those matches. Let's get to it.
But when we look at the real world context, we realize that there are some additional constraints on the domain and range. So what do you think this graph would look like if it were drawn to represent that real world context and not just the equation or function that represents the context?
Que me queda negativo 2x más 1. Negativo 2x más 1. Así que siguiendo la misma lógica, haga este después de la pausa.
So
3 meters, 3 meters, 3 meters.
So the students get to choose between different instructors when they're at home, and the parents can say, we've got teachers that teach exactly to our state standards, right? Not Common Core, but specifically to Kansas. And in some states they want Spanish, others they don't. We don't need to have a Spanish instructor. We can, but the Spanish instructor, because the tests are in English, teaches the students the English because they have to take the test in English. And so the students get to choose, and the parents get to choose who that tutor or co-teacher, or whatever you want to call them, we call them study experts, that they want to help to do that. And you saw some local examples. There was an orange juice example. That was a Florida one. But of course, we can use, wheat and cattle and all corn, things like that. And so we do this separately for each state. It's always a little different, but it's always neat. And the tutors get kind of I'll just show you this. So you can choose, for example, in this state, it was Amy is more in depth. So if you miss class one day, sick, COVID, whatever it is, Amy will go through the entire lesson for you. And you have that in your phone. All we have for the student cell phones we'll talk about. Ashley's for more review. She's much faster. She's the night before the test, or for students that want to accelerate and go into the next grade level and move ahead. It's not just for help remediating students, it's also for going ahead. And so they can choose that, and they've got all of that at home and on the weekends. I'll show you a very quick clip that we like to bring the study experts around to schools because the schools want them to visit, and they get kind of a rock star reception here. So I'll just show you about 30 seconds of this. It's kind of neat to see.
There might have been somebody that snuck in our car with us.
Yeah.
Did you like Zach?
Zach. They want to meet Zach. It's just kind of neat. I've been to over 100 school visits, and it's always pretty exciting. It's like celebrities and such, and you don't really get that in math typically, right? So it's a neat thing to watch. The inner city schools, rural schools, everywhere we go, you'll see some ones across Mississippi, in the Delta region of Mississippi, which is incredibly rural, very hard to find math teachers in the Delta region. You've got what they call long-term subs, which means your kid has a geometry teacher all year that doesn't know geometry, right? And then we wonder why the students are not performing as well as they could, right? Because of teacher shortages. And so it's very important that we have that after school on the weekends, that these students have full access to all the standards they need with their parents to learn all of this stuff. So I'll just kind of run through a couple of the things here real fast. We'd love to get to questions because we're educators. We'd love to have a discussion, not give a lecture as much. So the family resources that we have are not just that the students and parents can choose between these teachers that teach every single thing on video, but we also have videos specifically for families. What I mean by that is a lot of parents learn math differently when they were in school. So we have videos for parents that say, here's how you learned it, here's how your kid has learned it, your student has learned it, and it's the same kind of math, and here's how you can help them out. It's great for mentors as well. Full support for them. We do have workbooks. They like what you saw behind their heads that they were going over stuff. Especially, students love taking a workbook home. This is South Carolina right here. It was aligned to standards, talks about the universities here that we work with, and they write their name on this, they take this home, and it's got local examples for them, which is nice to have at home. So it's kind of a neat part of the program. They don't have to use the workbooks, but they love it, especially because they don't have enough textbooks. In many of these rural areas, there's only one classroom set of textbooks. They can't take them home at night. We go to local companies, we work with local companies, so maybe a Garmin or a Spirit or someone like that. So we go on location with them because parents, your kids always say, am I ever going to use this? How am I going to use this? And you're like, I don't know. But we actually go in and we actually interview Kellogg's in Michigan. We do Pringles and Cheez-Its and things that students know. We show them real engineers. I won't play this too long, but we went to Boeing in South Carolina because all the 787s are made in Boeing in Charleston. And of course, they need more workers, right? So these students need to learn math. So we interview engineers. We do real life math problems with them. It's pretty exciting. And the last thing I'll mention is just the unlimited tutoring at night and on the weekends. So the students don't just watch videos, they actually get to go online and they can actually ask any questions they have in math all night, all weekend to their peers across their state. So imagine any student across the state of Kansas can go on there and ask a question or take a photo of what they're working on and say, I don't understand this. And then other kids help them, and we hire local teachers to supervise that. And that's how we're able to provide thousands of tutoring sessions every night, which is pretty exciting, that they unlimited tutoring, and we give out prizes, and there's a leaderboard and all this stuff that the kids can help each other, and it's pretty fascinating to watch. ACT is included because ACT is incredibly important, of course. Universal access, the videos download to their phones. They don't have to have internet at home. Obviously, broadband is a huge issue. They do not need to have broadband at home to use the program. They can download the videos on their devices. They can go home, have all the access with the workbooks and the videos and everything, come back to school, and everything syncs back up. There's no state mandate. Every district decides how they want to use it. We hire local full-time staff to drive around and work with every district so they can decide how they want to use it. That's about it. Everybody gets access, and yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to present that information to you. We'd love to be in the state.
Well, Ethan, I thought that was pretty interesting, particularly like the videos, like you said, for rock star status to be math instructors, that's pretty interesting. We'll open it up for some questions, but my first question for you is, are Morgan and Dana going to say something?
I would love to have them, if you don't mind. We're trying to figure out if they can come stand with me. That'd be great.
They can stand with you.
They know this stuff as well as I do, if not better, so. We'd love to
Okay. So committee, what questions do you have for our Math Nation presenters? Yes, we'll start with Senator Gossage and then Senator Petty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here. I'm the former district manager for Sylvan Learning Centers for the Midwest, and the question I have for you, we were completely private, parents paid for the services, still there. So can you tell me how this is funded?
Yeah, so in the four states that we've been in, or that we are in over these years, it's actually funded by the legislature, although it can be turned over to the districts. The most important thing is we need 1 year to build the program because it's a different program in each state. Does that make sense? So the key is that we need the state involved for 1 year that we can build out the program, and then whether the state continues to fund it after, stimulus and other money is gone, or whether the districts pay for it, either way is fine. Once they see it and they use it, we found that all the districts want to have free tutoring for their students.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So give the follow-up, what does it cost for the 1 year startup?
It's a great question. $4 million, including the tutoring, workbooks for all the students, everything, full-time staff, parents, absolutely everything. $4 million to build it, and including the first year. After that, it's about half the cost every year after that, because we can save a lot of money. We don't have to build it again for the state.
Senator Petty.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, $4 million, that's, I'll just take Mississippi since we have a letter from Mississippi here. So that's $4 million to build it statewide for all school districts, because I know she had a pilot in Mississippi.
Many years ago, we started with a pilot, but now it's 6th grade all the way through Algebra 2. So all middle school and all high school for $4 million to build out the program. And ACT prep, that's a great point. If we have less, we could do just high school or something like that. But I'll be honest with you, your high school teachers, they want access to 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade because the students miss so much in those earlier grades. So we'd really prefer, to do 6th grade all the way through Algebra 2 like we do in other states now.
And then also along that, so I'll just go back to Mississippi. So do they have a statewide curriculum then? Because our local school boards make decisions on their curriculum.
Yeah, and in every state that we're in, it's local control. Every district has their own curriculum. We are not a curriculum. We are a supplement that works around each one of theirs. So we work with we work with each individual district so that our stuff works around what they already have at the local level, and we adjust it based off of that. So yeah, we do not try to replace the curriculum that we're working on. We go to the state standards and we align it to the districts individually, how they're doing things.
As a tutoring program?
Well, the videos, it's a fantastic question. Let me give you an example. So a district will say, and actually maybe Dana can speak to this because she works on South Carolina, but I'll do very briefly, they may say, okay, our chapter 2 is section 3, and they'll let the kids and the parents know that Math Nation section 3 would do that, but Dana does this all day.
So
And
what we
if you
do,
could, I need you to introduce yourself.
my name is Dana Jenkins. I'm the director of Math Nation South Carolina. Thank you for your question. In South Carolina, each district decides how they use Math Nation differently, and the parents have access to everything like Ethan has shared before, and so even the parents can decide to use even more of the resources that's available to them. But we're not a curriculum, and each district in my state actually has a curriculum that does follow our state standards. So it would be, everything that we have would be aligned to the Kansas mathematics standards. And so whatever parts the districts did decide to use, and to whatever degree, we do have the confidence saying that they would be using Kansas material and Kansas standards. Thank you.
Senator Straub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions about this. It sounds interesting, but what specific methods does Math Nation focus on in developing, I guess, their assistance? I mean, I know there's, from homeschooling my own children, there's so many different methods to multiplication now. And as a parent and as a, learning coach, it becomes difficult to understand, well, why are they requiring them to learn it this way? Why do we care so much about how we get to the answer and that we just get to the right answer? So does Math Nation use one in particular method over another, and how do you determine that?
So it's a fantastic question. We don't have an agenda. We work with each state individually, and we lean on the universities and the community colleges for those types of decisions. What I mean by that is, folks in the state know the state better than we will, if that makes sense. We bring technology to the table. We have 24 U.S. patents. We do a lot of cool stuff. But at the end of the day, when it comes to whether you should do the chain rule or diamond method, that's really something that we look at the state standards first. A lot of things that you have in the state are, the truth is, they're Common Core with a Kansas cover slapped on top of them, and that's the truth. But what we do is we go from the standards on day one. We work with the universities, the colleges of education, the teacher prep programs to make sure that we've got this exactly, the professors, to make sure that we've got it exactly the best way that we can for that state. Does that make sense? So we don't really have, this is how we have to do things. We bring that around.
Follow up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in other words, you would, I assume that each school district in the state has, and each teacher, in fact, has the freedom to choose their own curriculum. And I know there's such a wide variety of math curriculums. Which one, or if any, does Math Nation cater to more than the others? Or do they present it assistance in all of the different ways to get to the actual solution?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. In Tennessee, for example, they've got integrated math in half the schools, which is not Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. It's kind of all at once. So we have to do things twice there, essentially. Yes, so there's different tutors that they can choose from who teach things a little bit differently. But we make sure to cover as much as we possibly can so that parents have that choice, teachers have that choice. We get an email every week from homeschool parents who want access as well. And I should also just mention one more thing to your question. We set up focus groups before we get started. So, if we're allocated the funding and we can get going, we have focus groups, and that includes not just districts and parents, but from public schools, but also charters and also homeschool parents. And we ask them exactly what they'd like to see. I showed you a lot of neat things that we do, but we're always building new stuff, and we want to customize something that's really good for everybody in the state, if that makes sense.
Okay, Senator Dietrich, and we're going to kind of need to make this the last question because we are not going to shortchange our presentation by Matt Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. Very interesting. You mentioned boys and girls clubs and those kinds of things. So if the legislature funds the program, how do they get access to it? Is it written into statute or? Can you explain that?
Yeah, we have a phone number, an 800 number, we have an email address, and anybody in the state who contacts us, we give them access because we want everybody to have access, everybody. That's the community colleges, your Department of Juvenile Justice, we're gonna reach out to them, get them access. We make differences because their students can't interact with the outside world, so we have technological changes for them. So as far as we actually go out, and our 3 full-time staff that we hire in each state actually are on the ground looking for all of these programs and getting that word out, because we want everybody to have that access to a Kansas program so they know that what they're helping their mentees with is the math, and they can help their students.
I'm going to say thank you very much. I think we might have some follow-up questions that you might be able to respond to us in the future. One of them is certainly, what do you do with states such as ours that do not have high-speed internet? What kind of electronics do students need to have available to them? Because we know that that's an issue. So those are the kinds of things that if you could give us a follow-up response, I think that would be very helpful. And committee, as you have additional questions, let's get those to our committee chair, and she will make sure that they get routed to Math Nation. So again, thank you so much for being here today. We certainly appreciate the presentation. I think it's always good to see what's happening in other states, particularly what's been successful at boosting student achievement. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, very much.
And we're glad that you got to be here when we actually had really nice weather.
Yes.
We thought we brought it from Florida for you.
There we go. You may take credit. We'll let you.
No, I'm just kidding.
We'll let you take credit.
Thank you so much. And any questions everybody has, we love discussing the program. So just let us know. We'd love to talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And the one thing you might also do is, can you make sure that, did everyone get a copy of the PowerPoint?
If not, we'll make sure you do.
Okay. Make sure that Cindy gets that so that we can share it with everyone. All right? Thank you so much. So committee, we are now ending that presentation, and we are going to move forward for an informational briefing for Kansas Independent Colleges. We would like to welcome Matt Lindsay. He's been here before for the committee, but it's been for other hearings. Matt is president of the Kansas Independent College Association. So Matt, thank you for being here. And one of the reasons I wanted to make sure that we carved out the time, historically, we've had higher education presentations, and so we've heard from the Regents institutions and the community colleges, the technical colleges. Matt, unfortunately, is usually at the end, and he has about 2 minutes to present. So we're going to give you adequate time to let us know what are things that are happening in our independent colleges this year. So welcome.
Thank you, Chair Baumgartner and members of the committee. Good to be before you again. I am Matt Lindsay, the president of the Kansas Independent College Association, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you with a little more time for questions and dialogue, especially at the end. So I'm excited to know what you'd like to know about the private colleges in Kansas. In addition to some text of remarks that I will draw from and not read, you've all got hopefully at this point, a book that looks like this. I will refer to this a few times in here for certain slides, so I didn't give you a PowerPoint slide or anything like that, but there are charts that may be useful as we go. I'm also pleased to answer questions now or later if there are things that come up that you'd like me to suss out a little bit more. So KICA represents the 20 accredited not-for-profit colleges that are based in Kansas. All 20 offer at least one undergraduate degree program. All 20 are accredited by the Higher Learning Commission, and all 20 are not-for-profit. They are independent of government. They are independent. They are fully 501c3 not-for-profits. I've told you before when last time I was before you that I represent those schools include the oldest 2 colleges in the state. So Baker University is technically the oldest university in the state. They were founded in 1858 before there was even a state, and have operated as Baker University ever since. Benedictine College in Atchison was also founded in 1858, but as St. Benedict's College, and they had a men's and a women's institution. They merged since, but they still operate under that charter, so they get to claim second oldest. There were 2 other colleges founded in 1858. One was called Highland College, which didn't last all that long, and then was later resurrected, not that long later, as what is now Highland Community College. And there was a 4th called Bluemont College, which also lasted about a year and a half, and then was later resurrected and became Kansas State University. But the 2 oldest, again, Baker and Benedictine. It also includes the youngest college in the state, Mid-American Nazarene in Olathe, was founded in 1966. It includes the first junior college in Kansas. Central Christian College in McPherson was started out as a 2-year school, is now mostly 4-year. It includes the first university to admit women and African Americans. Friends University in Wichita was the first college in the state of Kansas to admit African Americans and women. So there's a lot of interesting history through the nonprofit colleges in Kansas. Of those 20, 19 of them were founded with a Christian faith in mind. The 20th is Cleveland University in Kansas City, one of the country's best chiropractic colleges. And you all have done some work in the past to help do some work, to fix some things for them statutorily that have made them even better today. Of the 20, 2 of them are primarily 2-year institutions. So Kansas is actually blessed with 2 not-for-profit 2-year institutions. It's kind of a rare thing these days. Donnelly College in Kansas City, Kansas, and Heston College in Heston still remain mostly 2-year degree schools. You'll hear me again talk about and use several terms interchangeably: not-for-profit, independent, and in my case, private. But please know that that does not include for-profit institutions. So here in Topeka, up I-70 a little bit, you see Rasmussen University. That's a for-profit college. That would not be one of mine. You also won't hear me talking about any not-for-profits that aren't based in Kansas. So I work only for those nonprofits based in Kansas. Lastly, and I think when you've heard from Dr. Flanders from the Board of Regents, he's laid this out, that the private colleges in KICA are outside the portfolio of the Board of Regents. So in most of the cases, we existed before there was a Board of Regents. And so while the Board of Regents governs the 6 Regents universities, they coordinate those plus Washburn and the community and technical colleges. They regulate all of the for-profit colleges and those schools that are based outside of Kansas. They don't have a specific role with our schools. We cooperate and we try to serve all Kansans together, but there's no statutorily defined role that the Board of Regents has with the 20 not-for-profit colleges of KICA. Lastly, that KICA, that I stands for independent, and that's a very important part of who our schools are. I do not run a system. I have lots of carrots, but no sticks to compel them to act the same, and they value that independence very, very much. So another way to think about that is our schools don't receive any direct institutional dollars from public entities, from the state, from their counties, from the federal government. The only government dollars that typically go to the 20 not-for-profit colleges in Kansas pass through the hands of students in the form of student aid, whether it's at the federal level with Pell Grants and things and work study, things like that, or at the state level through the Kansas Comprehensive Grant and some of the other smaller scholarships that the state offers in teachers and nurses and that sort of thing. There are no grants to build a building at Newman University. When Newman built their science in Wichita, their new science building 5 years ago, that was $8 million of privately raised money. Much of it from out of state that was spent in Kansas, but there was no state money spent to build our buildings. It's an example of what I mean when we say we're independent. Now, let me tell you I think some exciting and good news. I am very pleased to share that enrollment for the Kansas independent colleges is up. So you've heard plenty of stories about higher ed enrollment being down amid the pandemic. In Kansas, private colleges enrollment is up, and up significantly since the pandemic started. So this fall, we had about 24,000, a little bit more students enrolled across all of our campuses, both the main campus, online, the adult campuses we have in various places, Baker Nursing here in town at Stormont Vale. 24,000 students or so means we enroll about 12% of the college students across the state of Kansas. If taken collectively, we would be about the size of KU. So we would be one of the largest collectively. Obviously, we're not one institution. I said we're not a system, but collectively we are about the size of KU as you think about the number of students. I want to draw your attention to the graph at the top of page 3 in here, which is while I said our enrollment is up a little across all modalities, I'm most excited about what you will see in blue on page 3, and it's sort of the big bit on the bottom. Since the pandemic started 2 years ago, our main campus enrollment, our bread and butter, is up and up significantly. We have grown 16% in enrollment on main campus. Even our satellite campus is up a little bit, which took a hit. That's rebounded. But the big story is main campus enrollment is up, and up quite a bit. Now, I can't offer you hard evidence for why. I have some hypotheses, but I have not proven any of them yet. But I suspect some of this is driven from a number of factors. One of which is we have been in person since basically, except for that couple of months where everybody shut down when the pandemic started, we went back to in person right away. We played our sports on schedule. We didn't rearrange the sports schedules for any of our schools. So we played football in the fall of 2020 and et cetera. Third, being smaller and the nature of some of our missions has made it probably easier for us to hold each other accountable. It's easier to tell somebody when the president knows your name when you walk across campus. It's a little harder to hide that you're not looking after your health and those around you. So we didn't need to impose mandates and tell everybody they had to. We were able to hold each other accountable in ways that kept us safe. And lastly, I suspect that many of our schools being somewhat more rural helped draw students here. At least in the beginning phases of the pandemic, it looked like it might be safer to be in a rural community than in an urban community. So it's likely that we got a boost from students and families saying, hey, it might be safer to be at a KICA school. An important aspect of this, though, you'll see at the bottom of page 2, and the call-out sort of extends across the spine there, a very high proportion of our enrollment growth comes from out-of-state students. So we are up 13% in out-of-state students since fall 2019. A lot of Californians, a lot of Texans, a number of other states, but those two are big pipelines for us, have decided to come to KICA. That probably has a little bit to do with this. And I think that's an important thing to point out, and I'll return to this in a minute, because we in KICA do a really good job of keeping out-of-state students here after they graduate. So one of our strengths is our larger out-of-state student population stays in Kansas when they finish their degree. It'd be hard to go to Lindsborg, to Heston, to Hillsborough, to Sterling, and not find a lot of people who came to go to college at one of those places and decided, hey, I love it in Kansas. They finished, they found a home, they found a community, they found a church, they found a spouse, they found a first job and stayed. And so that's really a point of strength and pride for our private colleges is we draw people to Kansas and they stay here. Some things I'll highlight about our schools in case you didn't realize. I mean, we're small and somewhat on purpose, and we're teaching institutions. So our student to faculty ratio is about 13-1. It is really hard to disappear on our colleges. 97% of our classes are taught by faculty. We don't have a lot of graduate assistants teaching our classes. Nearly a quarter of our students are the first in their family to go to college. So, and a significant percentage, about a third, are non-white. That's about the same as what you would hear at the Regents. We are not schools of wealthy white students in KICA. We look a lot like Kansas does, and we're proud of what we do with them. I will point out that one of our schools, to emphasize the diversity aspect, Donnelly College in KCK has been identified as the most diverse college in the Midwest 2 years in a row. We actually have 5 out of 10 in the top 10 in the Midwest, all based in Kansas. But Donnelly College is seen as the most diverse college in the Midwest. All right, so that's what it looks like when they get to us. How do we do with them and our outcomes? Last year, we awarded about 19% of the bachelor's degrees, 20% of the master's degrees in Kansas. So about 5,800 degrees in total. So I want to reemphasize, we have 12% of the students, and we turn it into 19, almost 20% of the degrees every year. That's an efficient investment in what we're trying to do with our students. We want them to complete a useful degree that leads them to a life of success. And we do that pretty well. If you turn to page 12 of this fact book, you're going to see a chart that shows you a little bit, it looks like this blue chart here, about where we are more heavily enrolled, like what programs are we particularly strong in. For instance, we award 39% of all the bachelor's degrees in nursing in Kansas each year. Healthcare is a big investment for us. And you'll see in this list, the helping professions tend to be a place where we're strong. And that's intuitive from the nature of the founding of a lot of these schools. Teachers, nurses, social work, mental health. These are strong places of investment for us and always have been. I will also point out that law enforcement and emergency management is a big part of what a lot of our schools do. 27% of the bachelor's degrees there came from our schools. Kansas Wesleyan in Salina and Heston have degree programs explicitly in emergency management. And that has become a very big partner for the state and for localities on training and development for their teams. One last piece before I kind of talk us about some issues is affordability. You guys will ask, and so I should already talk about it. I am a shameless champion for our private colleges in Kansas. I will always be one. But beyond the number of degrees awarded, number of students, I am proudest of the fact that in Kansas, our private colleges have remained affordable. For what is now, and if you can see this in your book on a couple of pages, our sticker price, so that's the price we quote before you can get $1 of aid. Our sticker price for undergraduates for tuition and fees is $29,000 a year. That's the 14th consecutive year that private colleges in Kansas have been at least 20% below the national average. So 14 years running, we're more than 20% below what it costs nationally to go to college. Moreover, as I said, that's just the sticker price. That's just what we quote before we give you, anybody gets $1 of Pell Grants or anything else. 98% of our students, of our undergrads, qualify for financial aid, most of which comes from private sources, money that we raise ourselves. After aid, the average net cost, so tuition, fees, room, board, books, all together, average cost is $16,410 for the entire year. Now, that's not cheap. I'm not going to say that that's cheap, but compared to what you see in the news about college nationally, $16,000 a year for the quality of education we can provide, I don't feel like we've fallen down on the job in doing that. Moreover, and I can't emphasize this enough, cost per year doesn't really even tell you the whole story. It matters how soon you can finish. And our students, if they graduate, are more likely to graduate in 4 years than the national going rate for public universities. So we are really good at emphasizing with our students, you're here to get a degree in 4 years. If you finish in 4 years, compared to 5 or 6 years somewhere else, not only are you not paying a 5th or a 6th year of tuition, room and board, et cetera, but you're earning income. That makes that degree that much more affordable for our schools. If we can get you out in 4 years with a high quality degree, we've actually saved you money relative to a 5 or 6 year plan. And then let's talk about debt for a minute. Kansas as a whole is not a high student debt state. We're a pretty low state relative to the country. For KICA, the average total debt of a graduate is about $23,700. Total, not per year. When they finish, the average debt is $23,700. That's not nothing. But if you go down the street right now, down Topeka Boulevard, and go buy a brand new 2022 Chevy Malibu base model, that's going to cost you $26,000. Turns out that if you look in, you can see in here as well, our loan debt has been less than a Chevy Malibu since 2001, and possibly longer than that. So you hear plenty of hysteria about the runaway college debt, but I don't hear a lot of people saying car debt is out of control and we need to do something about it. And in Kansas, we're doing a pretty good job of keeping debt under control. Moreover, a college degree appreciates, a car depreciates when you drive it off the lot. I'm going to skip to a couple of things and say thank you. First off, last year, you all passed a bill that was very important for us. It was House Bill 2070, and it allowed us to pass credit card fees on to the end user. So it used to be that if you paid your tuition bill with a credit card at a private college in Kansas, we had to eat the fee that Visa or American Express or whatever would charge us. That was a significant drain on our budgets. Public entities didn't have to. They had the option to pass those on to the end user. Most of our states around us could pass it on. You all passed a bill that allowed us to do so as well, and for a number of our schools, that's saving in $100,000, $200,000 a year that they're able to plug back in to student aid to keeping college affordable. Thank you for that help. We appreciate it. Second is the Promise Scholarship. We've talked about it already, and I just want to say we were very grateful to be included. Obviously, 4-year bachelor's degrees are our bread and butter, but we have a number of smaller 2-year programs that fit what the Promise Scholarship was aimed at. We are grateful we got to be included. We're very hopeful that the trailer bill gets to be moved because it fixes some things that are likely to cause us to have to rethink things if we don't get them fixed. So hopefully that's going to move across the floor soon, and happy to do what we can to help with that. I want to talk, and also if you have, there's some in my remarks. I won't spend too much time on COVID and Spark and all of that aid. There's some data in my remarks that can tell you some more of that. Just thank you. Thank you for continuing to remember that private colleges are part of what we're trying to do there. I want to take one last moment and talk about mental health and social work. I'd love to see this committee help us address this. Obviously, we have a need across the state for mental health professionals, for social workers. There is a need, especially in rural parts of the state. Our ability in private colleges has been inhibited to grow those programs, has actually been inhibited by some of the decisions that BSRB has made recently. I'm going to give you two examples. The University of St. Mary in Leavenworth has a master's in social work. This program is delivered completely online. Obviously, to get more social workers in parts of the state that don't have a university in-house, online is going to have to be part of what we do. BSRB is the licensing agency, and they have determined that a Kansas resident can get their Master's of Social Work at any out-of-state institution and be granted a license to practice in Kansas. It doesn't matter whether it's fully online or not. A Kansas resident can get their Master's of Social Work at a Kansas-based institution as long as it is fully accredited by the programmatic accrediting body, or a candidate campus, which is what University of St. Mary is, except if it's fully online, BSRB refuses to grant licensure to the graduates of those, even retroactively. That's a problem because if we're going to grow online programs, we are seeing a delay, if not an impediment, of University of St. Mary to educate Kansans in social work. Meanwhile, they can educate people from Missouri, and they're off and running. They can get a license and go to Missouri, then go to Iowa, then go to Nebraska, and it's no problem. They just can't practice in Kansas. That seems counterproductive to being able to address the social work needs of the state. A second issue is that the BSRB's rules are not even in compliant with the programmatic accreditor on social work's rules. So Kansas has become an outlier in this. Kansas, a fully online program like University of St. Mary's, can educate and graduate licensable social workers in 19 other states, but not Kansas. So help to address this in some way might be necessary as we move forward, session and beyond. The third piece I would point out is, other than University of St. Mary, Kansas has a 100% fully online social work program that is in candidacy status. It just happens to be a public university, Fort Hays State. BSRB has said, you all are fine. They have just told St. Mary they are not. That to me seems like a way of not helping the state address its social work needs. The University of St. Mary is a fully accredited, highly accomplished institution. There are no academic concerns of University of St. Mary. It turns out that they're not a state institution. Second piece is Ottawa. Ottawa has a master's level counseling program at its Overland Park location. They have a parallel program in their site outside of Phoenix. Have been doing this for 2 decades. It's one of the highest quality programs you can find. The HLC has accredited it, but for 2 years, Ottawa has been trying to get BSRB to approve their program in Kansas and has been delayed over and over again for no discernible reason. And I've got in my remarks, I give you some summary of that. The bottom line of all this is we want in private colleges to serve Kansas. We want to be part of this ecosystem of workforce development, of education that serves the state. We want to be part of this. And so being treated equitably is an important part of this, being remembered that we're here to serve, we're high quality, we've been doing this for a while. Any help you all can provide now and in the future as you think about other initiatives to remember we're here and we want to play a role would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for the time to throw a lot at you. I would love to hear what questions you have.
Yes, we'll start with Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 12, you shared a little bit about some of the programs. I did think it was interesting when you talked about the differences between, or just the fact that it's a teaching college and doesn't have that research component. So there can be a little bit more focus on the application. And so I was curious if there's any very specific differences that you see, programs or degrees that those universities and colleges that are focused on teaching versus the research. What are some of the main program differences?
I don't think there's academic content differences. I think the differences are often driven by pedagogy, which is if I am a research university, research faculty are here, they're trained to be researchers. The way we train PhDs in this country is very driven towards doing academic research. I was once a PhD student in economics myself. There was no training on how do you teach a class. The faculty who come to our smaller private colleges come there because they want to teach. That's what they want to do. And therefore, the sort of student engagement opportunities provide a different pedagogy for delivering that content. I think the end content, the academic quality is much the same. It's how it's delivered that is different.
Senator Sykes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Matt. So looking at the increase in enrollment after COVID, so I went to a state school and then I graduated from an independent college that you know. But so are a lot of these colleges, do they require that most students live on campus? I know I thought that just kind of sheltering it may also be part of that.
Yes. Now, that's not all of them. Donnelly College does not have residence halls. Cleveland University doesn't have residence halls to the same extent. But the majority of them, yes, it is expected and even required that you live on campus.
Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? I am seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation today. We certainly appreciate it. I guess before you leave, with regard to the BSRB and, get back up here. With regard to the BSRB and the counseling program, what are ways that we could be helpful?
I suspect that part of this is COVID related, if I had to be generous, is it's been hard for them for the last 2 years too. So a chance for that conversation to happen here. I mean, you all have some authority for them. Let's have them have this conversation with you all to ask, maybe they have better reasons than we've been given for why this has taken so much time, but also a chance for Ottawa and St. Mary to explain what's going on even better than I can as well. I mean, I'm not an academic in those fields. You might have questions that I can't easily answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Committee, that is all we have scheduled for today. Tomorrow, we will be having, briefly, the Kansas Music Educators will be with us. Tomorrow is Kansas Music Education Day. We will also have the continuation on the foster care report card. Remember, that was cut short, and so we will be delving into that. So thank you very much. Committee meeting is adjourned.